Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. J.R. Gregory here on the call beside me, as always, Racing Ron Mons, and in the production booth, our friend and colleague, Joshua Wilkie. We are here today racing, as always, the Radical SR10, 425 horsepower, 725 kilos, no traction control, no ABS, the ultimate car to test your skill on the iRacing service. And folks, we are on public servers. This is the top split of the 2100 GMT Radical Racing Challenge server. So if you would like to join us, all you got to do is show up at this time on this channel and you can appear on Apex Racing TV. It's a great series. Upcoming tracks include Road Atlanta, VIR, Spa, Brands Hatch, Mosport, Mount Panorama, and the season finale is Nordschleife, the Green Hell. So join us, won't you? So here we are, Ron, at Road America for this round, located outside of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. In the early 50s, of course, Elkhart Lake was home to racing on public roads, which were shut down for safety purposes and led directly to the construction of this beautiful facility in 1955. And as Road America approaches its 70-year history, it plays host to NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and of course a full slate of amateur track days. Today's configuration: 4 miles, 6.5 clicks, and 14 corners. An older record on this track from 1998, Alex Zanardi in a Reynard kart car threw down a 141.874, and really, this is a fantastic track, Ron. We've been here a few times. We were here last season, and I know you came out and threw down some laps here this afternoon. And this track has one attribute that I know is going to play really well to these Radicals, and that is that long straightaway.
Oh yeah, this track, as fantastic as it is to drive, I feel like it's going to be even better for the racing. We've seen it in the past. We saw it basically every season that Road America has been a part of the Radical Racing schedule. It's a great track. You have the long straightaways to try and slipstream past each other, and you also have those very tricky braking zones, which in the Radicals, which are very hard, very finicky on the brakes. It's a very challenging spot for these drivers, and it's a spot where some of them can make some pretty big mistakes, so that'll be something to keep our eye on as this race develops.
Yeah, for sure. And like many a couple of, not many, like a couple of these tracks that we visit, Spa springs to mind. On this long straightaway, drivers are going to have a draft. And the question is, what are you going to do at the end of the long straight once you have develop that draft and gain some speed? The inside, the lead car will often cover the inside, so the car trying to make the pass is kind of forced to either wait or attempt the pass on the outside, and that forces these drivers to learn the braking point to take the outside line, and to learn that outside line to attempt that outside move into turn one. It's takes some bravery to attempt that one. I don't know if we're going to see that one today, but one thing is for sure, we're going to see a lot of drafting on that front straight, and we're going to see these almost 500 horsepower radicals reach their terminal velocity on this track.
I have a feeling that this race it definitely has big shoes to fill. Of course, last week we were running at Oulton Park, and that was just absolutely amazing to cover. Us two, JR, and our producer Josh, were all talking before this broadcast started about how wonderful the racing was last week. And I feel like even though this track has put on some great races in the past, it has some very big shoes to fill with the amazing race at Oulton Park was. But if any track were to try and usurp the excitement that we saw at Oulton Park last week, this would definitely be it. As I said before, some very good places to overtake, some very wide sections of this track where you can stuff 2, maybe even 3 radicals side by side, definitely going down that long second straightaway between turn 3 and 5. That'll be a spot where I'm sure a lot of drivers are going to go 3 wide on lap 1. But there's also some very tricky sections on this track as well. From my experience driving this combination a little bit earlier, I'll tell you that turn 6 going over that hill is a very tricky corner to get right. As I mentioned, the brakes are really finicky in this radical, but a lot of these drivers are mastering this track right now, and Andreas Friedrich, never mind Mick Hutchinson, has been the one to beat so far.
Mick Hutchinson throwing down the gauntlet, the first driver to break that 2-minute barrier as his tires warm, probably on his second qualifying lap here. And pretty good collection of drivers here today, Ron. We've got Andreas Friedrich on the grid today, who is currently number 1. I'm looking at our top 10 here, a couple of top 10 drivers. We also have James Berry out there, who is number 2 overall so far on the season. I don't see Kike Ming, though, unfortunately. He definitely provided some excitement at Oulton Park last week. He was one of that gaggle of cars that was battling throughout the entire sprint race. And folks, if you happen to miss that one, it's time well spent to go back, subscribe to Apex Racing TV, check out our channel, and go back and watch that Oulton Park race, because it was absolutely a barn burner and hopefully laid the stage for another exciting battle here today.
We have a lot of recognizable drivers in this field, but we also have plenty of newcomers. With this race, we saw the entry list there. 23 drivers are entered into this race. Right now, only 19 have set a qualifying time. Who knows how many will actually take the start, but that is still a very stat field, which I believe is actually the biggest that we've seen so far this season. So the very big field, which I think will also be a very competitive field, considering how the front pack is separated. I mean, just looking down the current live timing right now, the top 11 cars are all within a second of each other, and right now Mick Hutchinson is a breakaway star right now, the only driver below the 2-minute lap time barrier, but still a very competitive field, a very big field, and hopefully it'll convert to some very good racing.
Yeah, Mick Hutchinson has been a solid performer when we've seen him. He may not be participating every week. Well, I'm a little surprised not to see him on the top 10 list that's here in front of me. But with Mick Hutchinson out there, Friedrich and Barry and some of the other people that tend to live at the pointy end of the field are going to have their work cut out. We have seen some just great work from these drivers. And here we go. Here is our grid. On the pole, as we said, John Mick Hutchinson in P1. Andreas Friedrich will be next to him in P2. Bremer and Woodward in row 2 behind them. James Berry, as I said, P2 overall so far this season, in position 5. Next to him, Franco Sanchez, Samir Kadura, and Dennis Kyriakopoulos in 7 and 8. Chad Fox, the sole Yank, it looks like, on the grid today, in P9. Iani in 10. Levine in 11. and Andreas Inope, I know I said that wrong, is going to be in P12. Mark Thiel, Von Patten in 13 and 14, Vasquez and G behind them, Samuel Ma and Reagan in 17 and 18. Ma's back a little ways. That's generally, we see him a little further up, so we'll be keeping an eye on him as he will work his way forward through the field undoubtedly. Garella and Namensson in 19 and 20, Richard Ziak and Simon Rayner in 21 and 22, and Dominic Armato will round out your field in P23. And there we see Hutchinson. He is going to have the inside line as we go green here with Friedrich having to kind of peek around the outside, as I was mentioning earlier on. And we are green. Hutchinson gets away pretty clean, but Friedrich has a bit of a run with Bremer sniffing around behind the two of them. McHutchinson will cover the inside. Friedrich will tuck in behind, and now Bremer looking around the outside. Friedrich now going back wide, and they're going to get through turn one here, clean a few cars side by side. Turn one, very tricky on these ice-cold tires. There's no warm-up lap prior to that standing start, and so far so good. A little smoke there going into turn three, but we are off and running at Road America.
A lot of drivers taking it fairly easy at the start of this race right now. Not a lot of them really going for many good passes. You saw some drivers going side by side right now. I believe we have some near side by side action up towards the front right now. The battle up towards the front, it's heating up a little bit. McHutchinson holds on to the lead, but it's not over yet. That battle will definitely be the one we have to keep our eyes on. But as I said, these drivers were taking it easy. That's some three wide action, I believe, coming into turn 6. That's some very tense stuff there. But I think the reason why these drivers are keeping it clean is because they all know deep in their heads that you can't win a race on lap 1, but you sure can lose it. And with how sketchy these radicals are, with very cold tires, you definitely have some ample opportunities to make a mistake, definitely now with this new season of iRacing, with a reworked physics for the grass and the gravel. No one really wants to go off track, especially coming through here, the carousel, where the understeer is really vicious on cold tires. Everyone keeping it clean so far. Knowing my luck, I probably just jinxed it.
Yeah, and here we are riding along with Friedrich, looking forward to McHutchinson coming through the kink, and even on cold tires, these radicals are flat through the kink, and we will see that throughout the day. Coming down here into Canada corner, it is McHutchinson from Friedrich, from Bremer, from Barry. Franco Sanchez will round out your top 5. A little jostling there in Canada, and looks like Von Patten falling back there. We may have had an off as we complete lap 1 here, and Hutchinson starting to build a little bit of a gap. He's 0.5 ahead of Friedrich. That is not enough to avoid the draft. So Friedrich is going to get a tow down the main straight here, and we'll see what he does with that here entering turn 1. You can see that gap on our timing tower dropping 0.2 now as we're entering turn 1. Hutchinson's going to take the normal line, and Friedrich is going to wait this time, maybe biding his time and setting up a pass for later, because of course if he gets ahead of McHutchinson, you know that the next time around McHutchinson is going to be in his shoes getting that tow down the main straight.
As close as this field was, we do have some drivers starting to fall back right now. Dizek right now in P23 is currently our last place runner, about 6 seconds off of the next car, so never mind that. We've got some side-by-side action here with Kadora, who's actually part of the session that I was in earlier today, a little before this broadcast started. He is trying to go side-by-side there. That's very close stuff there with Levine as they go into turn 5. That's an overtaking opportunity that I feel many drivers are going to be using, but they continue to go side-by-side. Coming through turn 6, and Kadora gets a move done, but I don't think it's going to be over yet. I think Levine is going to try and look to find a way to get past the driver from Argentina.
Wow, really nice move there. Coming up through turn 6, very difficult corner there under the bridge. You kind of hit a rise in the braking zone or across the apex. Not only is it a blind apex, but the car is getting light there, right where you're wanting to apply power to accelerate down toward the next corner. And a very nice move, great car control there by that driver, getting that pass done. Now riding along with Kyriakopoulos, looking back to Woodward in that pink machine, and Woodward looks like he got a little bit of the draft, took a peek inside entering Canada, thought better of it, and will stay behind for now. But McHutchinson still with a mere 0.4 gap ahead of Friedrich, coming back onto the front straight, and Friedrich is going to be sniffing around. Friedrich might have had a bad exit there out of that all-important turn 14. We see that gap has opened up a little bit, but just watch that timing tower, folks, as that gap drops coming down the front straightaway here. The draft so significant here at Road America.
As playing a big role in this battle right now that we have between Barry and Sanchez. He goes side by side coming into turn 1, and Sanchez gets a move done to move up into P4. But yeah, as we mentioned there, the other battle that we saw with Woodward, it's nice to see Woodward back in this series. You know, he took some time off, definitely didn't touch Season 2 with a 10-foot pole, considering how frankly crap the other Radicals drove that season. Appeared occasionally during Season 3, but has definitely made a comeback here with Season 4, definitely on these Friday broadcasts. When I started covering the other Radicals back in Season 1 this year, Robert Woodward was kind of one of the standout drivers, just always running in the series and always running fairly well. So right now he's running in a position that he's used to in these broadcasts, running in the top 10. It's a very good result for him right now, and especially with a stout field that we have here. A top 10 result currently running in P6 is very impressive, but I don't think it's going to be over yet. I think Kyriakopoulos is going to be really I think he's going to be very racy. That gap is still fairly close. It's less than a half a second separating those two drivers. So I think that battle might heat up in the not too distant future. We've got drivers shuffling all up and down this field. We've got some great battling, and the one thing that we mentioned very early on in this broadcast that's helping that happen is a very strong slipstream effect at the track, as straight line dependent as Road America is, and also the very heavy braking zones that are letting these drivers try and sneak a move and go for a dive bomb every now and then.
And Ron, that slipstream giveth and it taketh away. You see these groups of cars, kind of mini trains forming here, as G we're riding along with wants to take a peek inside of Canada, and he's going to make that work, getting past Vasquez, looks like. But we'll see some of these little mini trains form, and if you miss the train, they're going to drive away from you. Miss the train, you're going to be late for work. And once again, back up at the front, I see McCutcheon from Friedrich, Bremer, Sanchez, and Barry. McCutcheon, Friedrich, and Bremer kind of forming that first three-car train. See some peaking going on there into turn 1. Little side-by-side action. That's Kyriakopoulos. And looking at Woodward ahead and Levine behind, and those cars separated those three Radicals by only 0.4, and a fourth car wants to get involved there into turn 6. And boy, oh boy, these Radical drivers caught some adrenaline and caught a charge from that Olton Park battle last week and are driving hard here today. Wow.
It's Kadora that actually looked for the move going into turn 3, and now he's getting challenged by Ayani. They're actually going side by side, going down the back straightaway, and the battle up towards the front also heated up a little bit. I think I saw Andreas Friedrich and McCutcheon swap positions as they went through turn 5, but McCutcheon holds on to the lead and is actually starting to pull away right now from Friedrich. They're kind of, actually I say only two of them. The front three right now are really pulling away from the rest of the pack. Right now Bremer is 1 second off the lead, while Sanchez currently running in P4 is about a second and a half behind. So those drivers are starting to pull away right now, and right now it's just very close. We've seen this occasionally in this series. You mentioned it about 4 times last lap. We've got mini trains forming all up and down these fields, regardless of what track we're running on. You know how we do it on these Radical broadcasts. Whenever we have to mention train, you always got to give a whistle. So we've got multiple trains forming all throughout this field, just mini trains you could call it, just 2-car, 3-car packs, and this 3-car pack right now is reminiscent of one that we've seen in many of these Radical races, where it's just a front 3 start to pull away as drivers further behind start to battle. That's one thing that we always keep our attention on these Radical broadcasts, with how hard these drivers try and claw for every position they can. They get their elbows out a little bit and it starts dragging each other down. So I think even though they have pulled a quite significant gap, you can just see it on your screen, the gap between Bremer and Sanchez is pretty far away right now, nearly 2 seconds as it stands right now starting lap 5. But if these drivers start to battle quite hard, we could see this 3-car battle turn into a 5-car battle very soon. We've got a 5-car battle right now that we're seeing, and it is some very tense stuff right now that is amazing to watch.
Yeah, Woodward leading a little train here with Kyriakopoulos and Levine behind, and 2 more cars behind them. And here comes Levine, I think, around Kadora. And my goodness, yep, that is Levine. And Woodward looking back, there is a little train. He's the pink car in the front, little 5-car train forming there. And these 2 orange cars, matching Gulf liveries, teammates possibly, are scrapping nonstop here. And that is, who are we looking at there? Levine and Kyriakopoulos, I guess. I don't recall seeing Levine before, but these 2 drivers obviously have some familiarity with each other, as a lot of these Radical drivers do. You see a lot of moves in these races that show the trust that these drivers in this tight-knit Radical community have built up for one another.
That's a very good point that you mentioned. I don't believe I've seen Levine on these broadcasts. So you've got the new guard and the old guard. You've got drivers that we've seen many times on these broadcasts. You've also got new ones that we haven't seen before. Paynor, who's currently down in last right now after some kind of incident. He's had to tow back to the pits. He's fairly new to the series. I just saw the live timing screen as he dropped down, so that's unfortunate for the newcomer, at least for these broadcasts. We might get a replay to see what happens soon. Thank you, Josh. But right now, looks like Levine's trying to go for a move going into Canada corner. On Woodward there, they're going side by side into this very heavy braking zone after the long back straightaway that they call the kettle bottoms here at the National Park of Speed. And it looks like Barry gets, actually no, that's Levine that gets a move done on Woodward.
Yeah, and Levine there with that move moves up 5 positions from his qualifying of P11. That makes him the hard charger currently. And I think we're going to see what happened with Rayner here. See a little lockup and oof, straight off there in that short straight after Canada. And again, folks, these radicals, no ABS, so you will have to learn and master the brakes on these cars in order to succeed. And we see somebody getting bitten right there with that little lockup.
Yeah, I definitely locked up multiple times on the few laps I did very early on today. Basically, my tires had been turned into rectangles after about 5 or 6 laps, so I can feel that driver's pain, who I think just decide to call it a day after that. That's a very frustrating mistake to have, especially going through that that very choppy runoff area. Anyone who's driven at this track in iRacing knows that that runoff area is very bumpy. Ooh, that was nearly contact there between Woodward and Karakopolis there as they went on the brakes going into turn 5. So I think that might have been a small little puff of smoke there from the tailing driver there. Just another. It's a point. It goes back to the point that we mentioned early on in this broadcast, how the brakes are really tricky. We've noticed that many times, and even though these radicals definitely get better as you heat the tires and the brakes up and just everything get into a groove, it's still very tricky to drive this car around well. It teaches you a lot of how to be a very good driver, and really you have to learn respect when driving this thing, because that's really the biggest thing. You gotta respect getting on throttle, you have to respect getting on brakes. Usually in most cars you gotta hit the gas pedal like there's an egg behind it and you don't want to break the egg. Really with this car it's kind of the opposite. With the brake pedal, you don't want to press it too hard because then you'll lock up, and it's really susceptible to locking up in that same spot once again. So these cars are really tricky, but it's really rewarding if you get it right. So if anyone watching this broadcast right now on Apex Racing TV wants to join us, JR gave you guys the information, guys or gals, whoever's watching this broadcast. We gave you the information. If you want to join the Radical Racing Challenge, you know exactly where to do it. But if you don't want to drive and you just want to watch this racing action from a side, you know where to find us as well.
And I'm telling you, folks, you have my personal guarantee. If you master this cars, let's say you're a Miata driver or a GT3 driver or a Proto driver, you master this Radical, you get back into the car you're accustomed to driving, and you will be a better driver for it. And here we are riding along with Barry now, looking forward at Sanchez. Got about a 2/10 gap between those two. There is a passing opportunity down the hill here. We are in the moraine downhill, and Barry is going to take a peek down the inside under heavy braking downhill. It can be a little tricky, and you can run out of brakes there, but that time Barry makes it work. And into this difficult turn 6, headed back over toward the carousel. And Barry, that will move him up 1 position from his qualifying spot. And again, Matthew Levine, still our hard charger, running in P6 now ahead of Woodward, who is now in a Gulf sandwich between Levine and Kiriakopoulos.
Focusing on the incident here with Reagan, I saw him drop down the running order. We have an incident here coming into turn 1 we're going to take a look at here. There's Lawrence Reagan there behind. I'm not sure who that was there, but just small little mistake there. Hits the gravel, and just hitting the gravel, it's like hitting a stone wall with this new version of iRacing, and I think he just decided to call it quits after that. But getting back to the point that I was going to mention, is we see some more battling here between Barry and Sanchez. The lead pack right now has spread out a little bit. McCutcheon and Friedrich right now separated by 0.8 of a second, and Bremer has fallen back a little bit. But one thing that they might have to pay their attention towards, actually, right as I say that, the other driver that I was going to mention, who is Dizek, who was close to going a lap down there, has now pulled into the the pits. So as I was about to mention, how lap traffic could play a little bit of a factor there in that lead pack fight. The driver that I mentioned pulls in.
And here's Barry now looking at Sanchez into turn one. These two have changed positions 3 times now. One of the better fights that we have going on here over that P4 currently held by Sanchez, but Barry not done. You'll recall last time he was able to stick it in here into turn 5. He's in the same position now. He's going to get a draft here down the Moraine sweep, and he's got about 2/10 here to make up in order to put himself in position for that pass. He's peeking, showing his nose, but looks like he may tuck back in and regroup for his next attack.
And this is a battle that we have to keep our eyes on, and we've kept our eyes on it throughout most of this race, but we switch our attention now to the battle up towards the front. Right as I said at the start of this lap, how they had separated a little bit. Right now, it's still about a half a second, a little over a half a second, separating McCutcheon and Andreas Friedrich. You can see the last laps. You can see that Andreas Friedrich has actually set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:59.6, which is faster than McCutcheon's pole time. It shows you how much speed these radicals gain once you get the tires and everything heated up. So right now, Friedrich is starting to close up a little bit on McCutcheon. I'll take a look at my live timing screen to see what they did last lap, and I believe Andreas Friedrich closed in quite nicely there last lap. Yeah, he was the only driver that set a lap time last lap that was below 2 minutes. He set a 1:59.8, while McCutcheon was at a 2:01, basically flat 2:01, not 2:01, a 2-minute flat pretty much. So still just a tiny little bit of time, only a few tenths separating those drivers in lap time. But in this series, which is so tight and jam-packed with cars, especially with 23 drivers that took the start, right now only 21 drivers still on track. It's still very tight.
Yeah, and on the subject of tires and on the subject of the Radical being a great learning car, these tires will go off. Tires management is a factor. Even though we're only running 12 laps here, you cannot completely flog the, oh my goodness, and there is Sanchez taking Barry. Those guys have switched spaces again. A very daring pass into turn 1, but as I was saying, the tires on these cars will go off. You cannot drive 10/10 for the entire length of the race, and we may see that rear its head here as we are currently on lap 9 of 12, and Barry is not going to let Sanchez get away with that pass into turn 1, and Barry now looking into turn 5, and he's going to get that one done easily. Looks like Barry lifted there. Might be something going on there that we did not catch, but sure looked to me like Sanchez let Barry through that time, or maybe Barry's tires are going off just as I said that, because folks, they will go off.
Yeah, I think that mention of tires is very important. I think both of these drivers are killing their tires right now, battling as hard as they are. But something they're definitely killing with the how hard they're battling is that gap between Sanchez and Levine has cratered, basically. It's only half a second separating those drivers. So it's still very close. We've got half a second gap up towards the front. We've got half a second gap farther behind. That two-car battle that was originally between Barry and Sanchez is now forming a massive train here. You've got Barry, Sanchez, Levine, Woodward, Karakopoulos there, then Kadora and Ianni, just in a massive pack, only about less than 5 seconds separating about 7 cars. So, actually, I say that's a mistake from Kadora going into Canada Corner. He just barely keeps it out of the barriers there, but takes a trip into the gravel there coming through Canada Corner. He went so far deep into there. He's knocking on the door with Yukon, but never mind that. He will be out of that fight unless he can pull off something major in the final 2 laps of that pack that was originally 2 cars in that 5-car pack, then became 7, as now down to 6. Actually, I say that they have spread out a little bit, so it's a 3-and-3 pack we've got right now, as you can see beautifully with this camera looking down the front straightaway.
I think, are we looking at the front there? No, we're back to Barry and Sanchez, the conductor currently of that train. Barry, Sanchez, and Levine there in the orange car. A train 1A, 2A, I suppose. But again, these cars packed closely together. There's about 5/10 between the front and back car of each of these 3-car trains. And as we're running down here toward the end of the race, around lap 10 of 12, you got to think that if any of these drivers have designs on making a move, that move has got to come pretty soon. And we'll see what happens down the front straightaway this time, because these cars, as I said, will definitely be picking up a draft. The only question is, what are you going to do with that draft? What are you going to make out of it? And what kind of move are you going to attempt down into turn 1?
This series is as much about just raw, unadulterated speed as it is about mind games and just trying to save up your stuff. It's a really strategic form of racing because, as you mentioned, the tires are really important, but something that we've seen before is mind games as well. A few laps ago, I saw Levine blinking his headlights at the drivers up ahead. So just there's so many factors that play a role into these races where you have drivers trying to psych each other out. Of course, racing mind games are always really important, but in this series, it's surprisingly important considering how short these races are. Only 12 laps right now. We're only 20 minutes into this race. I say 20 minutes. A radical race in real life would be, he'd definitely be feeling it after 20 minutes, but it's still fairly short here in the sim. But still, just mind games are playing a big role, and even though there aren't any pit stops in this series, strategy plays a big role trying to save up your stuff towards the end. And I think Andreas Friedrich was saving his stuff up quite well throughout most of that. You can see he just set the fastest lap at a 1:59.4, so he is on a mission right now. He might be able to have enough turn of pace to try and pass McHutchinson in the not too distant future.
Yeah, Friedrich definitely laying down the law and had a heater there. I was watching that gap fall on the front straightaway, and you can see it now. They're almost even, that gap between McHutchinson and Friedrich. And there it is. McHutchinson's going to cover the inside. Friedrich is going to maybe try the over-under here under the Corvette Bridge, turn 6, and McHutchinson able to slam the door on him. But lap 11 of 12, and you don't have to be a prognosticator to see that something is going to happen here between Friedrich and McHutchinson next time around in turn 1 if Friedrich can maintain this gap.
Prognosticator, that's a word that we haven't heard on these radical broadcasts before, but yeah, just these drivers are feeling really racy at this stage. I'm sure Andres Friedrich is getting sick and tired of seeing the back of McHutchinson's radical, and he is going to try and find any way to get past. But just a brief mention on the battle that we were following farther behind, Sanchez made some kind of mistake as he's fallen down to 9th, not sure what happened there, but right now our attention is really focused on this battle here with McHutchinson and Friedrich. We might see a replay to see what happened with Sanchez, and I believe we might actually see that. Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Josh. We'll see what happened here with Sanchez. I think I have a bad feeling about this. Turn 6 is a very tricky corner. I had that. Many slides and spins coming through there, so we might see something like that. Actually, no, that was contact there. Sanchez gets pushed off into the dirt there, makes contact with another car, and sadly for him, his race is going to pot as a result.
Yeah, and that's going to end that epic battle between Sanchez and Barry. Meanwhile, white flag lap as McHutchinson and Friedrich come under the starter stand. McHutchinson holding first place. Friedrich is going to peek around the outside. McHutchinson moving over on him there, under braking. Little iffy. And McHutchinson again is going to cover the inside here into turn 3. Friedrich, his last chance, it will be down here at the bottom of the rain sweep into turn 5. Is Friedrich going to go for the send? Late last week, we saw a pretty epic send on the last lap. We'll see if Friedrich wants to dip his toe into that water. And Friedrich is going around the outside of turn 5 now. Can he maintain that outside line with McHutchinson on the inside? And he can't. Wow, what a battle between these two. And now Friedrich's going to try the over-under. He's coming under the Corvette Bridge into turn 6. And McHutchinson, again, knows just when to move over and slam the door on him. That one was totally legit defense. I have my doubts about McHutchinson's last cover in turn 1, but that is just good hard racing that we saw right there. And meanwhile, here's Ayani in that Marlboro livery. He's reeling in Woodward. Woodward has dropped a little bit. He's been under constant assault throughout this race. Woodward having lost 3 positions now in this onslaught. He was in that Gulf sandwich for a while. Both Gulf cars have now gotten past him. So you see Levine there. And Kyriakopoulos has gotten past Woodward as well. So Woodward just under pressure from these teammates through most of this race and has finally run out of juice.
Man, feeling the pressure right now is Mick Hutchinson, who has hold off the challenge from Andreas Friedrich. It wasn't even a challenge; it was more of an assault on the final stages of this race. But he's held his own and put together a defending masterclass. And I'll let you call it home here, Jr. Oh, there's Friedrich going off. So that's an even more comfortable win for Mick Hutchinson there.
Yeah, Friedrich has been beating that Radical to death. Been keeping an eye on him throughout this race, and McCutcheon managed to stay pretty smooth even when things got heated. And Friedrich was the one that you saw getting a little sideways here and there, getting in the grass here and there. And ooh, look at that livery on Chad Fox's number 10 car from the U.S. That thing is sweet. And here we go. We're the field is crossing the line here. Again, it's McCutcheon from Friedrich, from Bremer, Levine, Barry, Kiriakopoulos, Woodward, Sanchez, Iani, and Fox in that beautiful car. We'll round out your top 10. Kadura, G, Thiel, Inopi, Ma, Vasquez, Patton, Gorella, Armado, Nommensen are your 20 runners. And Ziak, I guess, did finish running, and Reagan and Rayner both parked it. And wow, what a race. That things are definitely picking up here in the Radical Racing Challenge following that barn burner at Olton Park. They have followed up that race with another fantastic showing here at Road America. What'd you think of that one, Ron?
Oh, that was amazing to watch. We had some fantastic battling all up and down the field, regardless of whether these drivers were running outside the top 15, running barely inside the top 10, or whether they were battling for the win. All those drivers were giving it their all, trying to win. And with only one split here, 23 drivers, only 20 of them actually still on track now. Actually, I say that only 21 on track to take the checkered flag. Still a very stacked field, and it was stacked full of racing action. And if you'd like to see more from the Radical Racing Challenge, you know where to find us here on Apex Racing TV in a week's time, where we head off to Spa, which I think is going to be a fantastic race as well. We've got a great schedule here for the Radical Racing Challenge. We went over it multiple times, so if you want to go over the schedule, you know where to look on iRacing to look at the Radical Racing Challenge. But it's a fantastic schedule that we have with this series, and I think it'll lead to some great racing, as we just saw tonight.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And here's our official results now, folks. McCutcheon, dominant from the pole, fought off multiple assaults from Andreas Friedrich, who did everything he could, including picking up some sod under the fenders of that Radical. Could not quite get it done. Andreas Friedrich will be your P2 finisher on the podium. Behind him, quietly getting that P3 is Bremer, Levine, Barry, Kiriakopoulos, Woodward, Sanchez, Iani, and Fox are your top 10. And shout out to Woodward. Woodward kept his cool despite being just assaulted from all angles throughout the entire race. I bet he's sitting in a puddle of sweat right now. But he lost a couple of positions, but fought hard throughout the length of that one. P11's Kadura, then G, Neely, Inopi, Ma, Vasquez, Patton, and Gorello. I think there's a couple more if we get a little scrolly action here on our grid. There we go. Armado, Nommensen, Jacques, Reagan, and Rayner. And yeah, Ron, we got a great schedule coming up here for the Radical Racing Challenge. And folks, it's not just about Radicals. We have a great schedule here on Apex Racing TV. You can see some of the best esports drivers and some of the best cars and some of the best tracks literally 7 days a week. So subscribe to Apex Racing TV. Don't forget to hit that notification icon so that you don't miss anything. But just coming up here, we got a strong weekend, 2 rate esports events, Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at Mosport, and then the Weekend Warrior SRF event will be at Sandown. And then Monday, the week kicks off strong with the Ricmotech World Challenge back here at Road America, and that is a mixed class race back at this fantastic track. And if you're not doing anything Monday night, don't care about the football game, stop by Apex Racing TV and check out the action here at Road America with Ricmotech. And taking a peek, have we got anybody stop by to visit us today?
I don't believe we have. There is actually, oh, we do.
Oh, here it's no, it's Kiriakopoulos, and maybe he's here to correct us on our repeated mispronunciation of his last name. I'll go ahead and drag Dennis in here and get his feedback from the race. And we do have Dennis Kyriakopoulos, and JR here. Dennis, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that name, and maybe you can set us straight on the correct way to pronounce it. But what a race today. Did you have fun out there?
So first of all, thank you. It was an amazing race. About my name, you pronounce it very well. The race was so intense, it's incredible.
So who was your, thinking back, who was your main opponent in this one? It looked like you and Woodward had something going for a while. And was that your teammate in the matching Gulf livery car? It looks like you guys had some really good fighting for most of the event today.
Yeah, I know Robert from a long time, and we respect each other. I know he's a good driver, he's fast, and we just wanted to avoid any incident. And I think we raced fair and good.
Yeah, you guys look great today. And do you enjoy racing here at Road America? What's your favorite part of this track?
I really like this track. I think just the slow corners I don't really like. So I like the beginning of the track, the end, but the slow corners I lose time there.
Yeah, well, what a show, and looking forward to Spa. What are you looking forward to about Spa? Is that going to be a good one?
It's a very good one, I think. As I said before, I really like fast corners, so you can imagine Spa is a good track for me.
Yeah, those fast sweeping corners. We saw that at Oulton Park last week, and here a little bit really seemed to suit this Radical well. You can kind of tell it was designed over in the UK because it's really well suited to those kind of hilly old school racetracks like Brands Hatch and Oulton Park. So, well, that was a great show. Dennis, is there anybody that you would like to say thank you or give a shout out here to today?
Yeah, I think Robert Woodward, since we raced the whole race together, I hope he will give the interview. And hello, Robert.
Alrighty. Well, if we see him, we'll pass that on. He is not waiting here currently. And yeah, spread the word. And whether you're at the podium or just want to stop in and say hi, we're happy to speak to any of you Radical drivers. You put on a great show every week. And thanks so much for stopping in.
Thank you for the commentating. It's really good and enjoyable to watch again.
Outstanding. Well, pop yourself a beverage and put your feet up. You'll have a good show if you watch this one. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Bye.
All right. Well, Ron, final thoughts. Leaving Road America, we're going to fly across the pond to Belgium to Spa. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to Spa. That's a track that really suits these Radicals. As Dennis Kyriakopoulos said there, the Radicals don't really feel too well coming through the very slow corners. So at a track like Spa, which is anything but slow, it's going to be a really good race there. And as you said, Apex Racing TV isn't just about the other Radicals here, and it isn't just about racing as well. We also have some insight right now as we are speaking right now, the return of the late Apex here on Apex, which is a show that we used to have, is currently being streamed live here. So after this broadcast wraps up in a few moments' time, if you want to go over to check that, you can hear Sam Fitzpatrick, a gentleman who I've had the fine privilege to commentate races with in the past. You'll hear them talk about some stuff going on in the sim racing world. And if you want to hear about anything going off on Apex Racing TV, you know how to hit the subscribe button. If you've been on YouTube for about 5 minutes, you know how the site works, so you know what to do if you enjoy the content on Apex Racing TV.
All right, well, that has been round 4 of the Radical Racing Challenge on Apex Racing TV from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. JR Gregory for Racing Ron Mons and Joshua Wilkie. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for this fantastic race today. Happy Friday and have a great weekend.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.